think we are ready to proceed with Jelena Brajkovic with scale jumping.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Jelena.
Hello. Hello to everybody from Belgrade. I will be talking about VG5. Do you see my screen? Yes. Do you see my screen? Sorry.
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you crystal clear.
Okay, thank you. So I will be talking about VG5 of Restore. It is last working group of Restore, and therefore concluding one. Therefore, we had a specific topic of hybridizing all information gathered and all research results that we established in previous groups, and we had an approach which is actually scale jumping and systems thinking. This means that for the future development of the built environment, we want to establish this, one step further, going into literally scale jumping and thinking both big and small. So definitely interplaying all the scales at which we can apply regenerative thinking. So this thinking cannot be partial thinking, and we cannot deal with the problems in a not connected and not systemic way. So therefore, we introduced systems thinking into regenerative discourse that we've been developing within Restore for the last 4 years. Through our topic, we were thinking of all from the interactions and both investigating all the connections that are established between main parameters of the built environment, and that is human nature and the built environment, and something which comes in between. So now I'm sharing with you the infographics of the VG5. I will not be talking about all the results, of course, that we established through different set of tasks that we finished, but I'm going to give you an overview of the group and what we've been doing in our very specific group, as we started exactly when pandemics of coronavirus. So there has been very, very, very interesting discourse going on between all members of our group, and all the things that now are emerging as actual questions after the pandemics, and which kind of relationship do we have with our built environments, and how can we improve this. So I'm sharing with you an infographics of the VG5, where you can see our main mission, which is exploring scale jumping potentials for neighborhood, city, and society-wide level regenerative sustainability through analysis, solutions, implementation. It is very important that besides physical scales, of course, we dealt a lot with social issues, with cultural issues, with everything that actually makes our reality and, of course, perception of our living in urban environments. We addressed scale jumping through size and through quality, of course. Through our subtasks, we address this problem very systematically by first investigating interactions, and then tools, platforms, and metrics. Of course, interactions. Here we had freedom to re-investigate all the relationships that we've been established between human nature and the built environment. And then in the tools, platforms, and metrics section, we dealt with all different aspects of implementation of regenerative design through, of course, a systemic approach and system thinking approach as well. So for the main outcomes, we had a task of finishing a booklet, which will be finished in next and printed in next month. And I am inviting you all to download, of course, a free copy of it when it becomes available on Restore website. And also, of course, see all these things that I will now just announce. We had even a sustainability special issue dedicated to the VG5 topics, where, of course, topics of education, humans, components, buildings, cities, energy systems, water, materials, all were taken into account. For short-term scientific missions, we have a quite active period, as VG5 was not possible to how to say develop through any more visited meetings, of course, because of the pandemics, but short-term scientific missions, we have 9 of them, but I will address to this in a slide to follow. One also of very important milestones of VG5 was the training school in Vienna, which we were able to develop in a hybrid mode. It was perfectly designed from our local organizing committee, and everything that we've been drafting through our framework, we actually implemented in designing urban renewal of city district in Vienna, which really needed assisting. So for the, of course, people of the VG5, we had more than 50, around 80 people active in VG5, with, of course, Andras Wright and myself as leader and vice leader. The book that I mentioned will be out soon, and I again invite you to download it, as I think it will be useful to anybody who is dealing with regenerative implementation. It is a guidebook, and it will provide you a system overlook and systemic solutions in different aspects of regenerative practice. This aspect you can see through the structure, and the structure of the book follows the structure of the subtasks and subgroups that were active within the VG5. And as I said, there are interactions, tools, platforms, and metrics through mostly technologies, to which I will address in next few minutes. Of course, digital tools, smart technologies, emerging technologies, then of course design frameworks, which is topic more than ready to be developed further through approaches like this, and of course policy documents and short overview of possible legislation improvements in order to achieve sustainable and healthy environments. Practical exercise was performed in Vienna. So as I said, what does this mean, scale jumping? And of course, this nexus between nature, human, and the built environment. This means that the built environment, of course, is always a consequence of the stage of the technological development at which humanity stands. And of course, the development of technologies shaped the development of society and also the culture. So, for example, one of main milestones was, of course, the invention of the printing media, which allowed in all aspects from the humanity to develop, but in terms of architecture and urban development, it actually allowed free communication and pre-designing of images in architecture, which led to, of course, pre-designed architecture. Then, of course, the industrial revolution and all manufacturing process allowed us to have automatized production and manufacturing, which led to, let's call them, standardized look of visual environments, which is in a way good and in a way bad, but it's something that we achieved, which can be found faulty, of course, and which we have to address in the future. So, of course, the third main point is the digital and new media and the rise of it, where we, of course, now deal with the data, and we enter a stage of non-standard technologies, variability, customization, emergent technology, organic forms, interactivity, and digitally supported participative design. So this is definitely a game changer, which, of course, we all know. But what does this mean for the regenerative environments of the future? It means a lot, and we are yet to discover in which way we can use the technologies to mediate our environments. I know that previous working groups were dealing with the technologies in many, of course, aspects that as we can, of course, analyze technology as a tool, but we can not forget that technology is also media, and it mediates our environment. And this is something that we should definitely deal with in future more, as usually mediation is not so, let's say, analyzed in many projects that actually go on around. We just deal with the consequences, but in the stage of conceptualizing, we are actually not so aware of all these aspects of how technologies build our experience of both urban space and our everyday life. So again, I am going to deal with the technologies in a way for a future development and systems thinking. And this is that, of course, we are increasingly shaped by networks. And of course, with networks and high-tech environments, there is no longer binary opposition between town and country, urban and rural. And this is a topic, of course, that becomes more and more actual with the pandemics and all the aspects that came out of it. We see that now we do not have to have this binary opposition anymore. And I would like also to cite Roy Ascott, who says that connectedness, we can actually understand it as a new principle of life, as a new evolutionary stage in human development. And this is something that we all are already experiencing. So how to connect everything and yet stay in connection, in real connection with nature, and in environments that are healthy and well-being. So this moderation of technology mediation, this connectedness has to be systemically built in future. And of course, when we think about technologies, we usually understand them as something which is anti-natural, but it doesn't have to be so. They doesn't have to alienate us from nature. They can bring us back to nature, but of course, in a new way. And this nature is not nature as we know it. It's something called neo-nature, or nature the second, as Roy Ascott calls it. It's actually nature supported by technologies, or let's say mediated by technologies. Of course, all this is through the human experience, of course. So this let's say triangle between human nature and the built environment, of course, technology as mediator, is a task that is yet to be investigated. I will just mention some new how to say directions that the development can go through technology, again, as media, not only as tool, and that is to help us to come back to nature in a more simple way, to lead more simple life, although it sounds, how to say, maybe unusual, as technology is pushing us into, let's say, always connected state, but this is something that should be changed, and it is possible to harmonize nature and human. Of course, in the 21st century, we will never go back to nature as we were before. So how to design these new relationships is something that we should work upon, and we should definitely have a biophilic approach to the development of technologies. So this biophilic approach we can learn through biophilic design, which is relatively new and very popular, let's say, again, especially since the pandemic started. How can we, in our urban environments, introduce, of course, meaningful and adequate way, and the elements of nature. So biophilic design is more, of course, than potted plants, as sometimes people like to joke about. It has very complex attributes, very complex elements that we can use to provide to humans environments that are healthy, that are good for well-being, and where people can develop healthy both their mental health, their cognitive functions, their performance, and also their of course physical and physiological health. I think you can see in my screen some of the attributes, actually, that almost all of them that were defined by Stephen Kellert, but of course they are open to revision and to future developments. There has been one also influential let's say, book about biophilic design, which can be very easy used in many projects in practice, and that is 14 Patterns of Biophilic Design by Terrapin Bright Green, which I am sure many of you are already familiar with. And this is something which should be introduced while designing environments to designers worldwide, which is not still the case, but can be if we change our again approach with the legislation and everything through this systemic thinking. We can do this. We can create meaningful and healthy environments for humans. I would then, after this a little bit, let's say, discussion about the future of the built environment, then the systemic thinking and the scale jumping, I would come back to our work packages. And as I said, first we analyze interactions, and you can see something which is a milestone image of the VG5 activities. And of course, we had 8 different subgroups, and they dealt with different topics. For example, this triangular nexus, which is a very, of course, complex issues, we dealt through patterns, which you can see on your left. We have, of course, many different results and scale jumping interventions that were summed up by Martin Brown, which again, practitioners can use very easily to improve the quality of their projects. Also, one interesting concept rose out of this subgroup task, and that is Restore 2030, which started as an exemplar city of 2030, which would actually adopt all principles developed within Restore, and which is becoming a publication to be published by the end of Restore. And again, I will invite you to download this brochure, which would be very important for educational purposes at all levels of education, for the regenerative discourse, from small children to, of course, the faculty level. Then we had only human built environments interactions, where you can see how authors approach to this problem through, of course, case studies and some different, of course, aspects like health and the built environment and similar. Nature built environment was analyzed through a methodic approach and something which is called urban acupuncture, which can be very influential as it is small scale and can be easily applied and yet give many results in different aspects of experiencing urban environments. And then we transfer to tools, platforms, and metrics, where technologies were analyzed through different aspects. And here you see the digitally supported regenerative design and scale jumping. You can see the main topics. Of course, you are familiar, I guess, with many of them. Then there is smart technologies, and as I said, data, and as I said already, connectedness, overall connectedness, and what can we learn from this data and how can we translate them into to support our urban environments. Then emerging technologies, again, very important topic, as we said, and besides, of course, emerging material, construction, operation, we have something like city models, information computational technologies for city models, which is which has very interesting points, and I invite you to read it, of course, when the book is out. Of course, something like 3D printed habitats, could this be a possibility? Could this be reality? You will find answers for this in the book. The frameworks, design frameworks to scale up, also a very interesting topic, as there is much place in this area to be improved. Many design frameworks are yet to be discovered, but in this subchapter and in this work package, we dealt with, as you can see, different design frameworks, and of course analyzed their feasibility. EU policy documents were also analyzed by our work package, and how it relates to practice and which are the problems in implementing regenerative and sustainable goals. As we said, we also had the practice exercise in Vienna, where else but the most livable city in the world. By being the most livable city, which actually offers a lot to its inhabitants, there are still districts that can be improved, and we worked on one of them, Brigitte Platz and Hannover Markt, when we were dealing with urban renewal. Trainees were dealing with this, and we tried to have the systemic approach through both analyzing social cultural relations, as it is very sensitive topic, in meaning how to find adequate solution for circular economy and circular consideration, having in mind which kind of structure of people live there and what do they want, need, and what would actually work in practice, as we talked a lot about other districts and other solutions that actually didn't turn out well in practice. So how can we avoid mistakes? through holistic planning. Of course, biophilic attributes that I mentioned earlier were also in consideration. And finally, SDSMs that I mentioned. This is still very active part of the VG5. You can see here the names of some of the SDSMs that will be conducted. Some of them are finished, some of them are not finished. You can see that we have a very wide range of topics. And after they are finished, we will have much more results that we can further build upon our research. I am very happy that we will be doing 9 SDSMs in this short period, that they are all possible to happen physically, and I'm happy to see the results of this. With this, I actually finish my small overview of the Working Group 5 of Restore, and of course, I thank you for your attention, and hopefully see you for the Belgrade online event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jelena, for this very informative presentation. So do we have any questions from the participants? Otherwise, I have a question to make, if you have the time. Let me just quickly check the chat box. So you've mentioned accurately that we have developed the tools and the technology, but it's just the medium, like a calculator. If we just punch the wrong numbers, we're gonna get the wrong results. So previously we didn't have the tools, but we had the vision using passive technologies, let's say with the roamers, etc., like orientating the position of a building. Now it seems that we have the tools, modeling and many other technologies, that we can achieve these results, but we have lost the vision. So what we mean in terms of scale jumping is that even if we cannot, let's say, provide a biophilic solution or an energy solution to a single project, to a single individual project, we can always create synergies at a bigger scale, let's say, or create synergies with other building owners. How feasible do you think that is, for example, in Europe, that we have a lot of existing buildings, let's say, and it's difficult to retrofit? And what could be a good example of a scale jumping scenario?
Well, a good example of a scale jumping scenario would be, of course, working, for example, on a city where all domains could be actually linked. So this would be meaning it has to be how to say, heavy multidisciplinary, let's say, collaboration between many sectors. Until we are not all together in it, very different sectors that actually shape the urban experience and urban life, we will not achieve solutions that we would be happy with. So what is needed, for example, in Europe is, of course, a framework, a network to be fitted with experts from different areas, also the social, even the historicity. I know it sounds a little bit maybe unusual, but you can see that also in the urban and architectural background, no more there is how to say a solid difference between the architect and the programmer. Now everything is becoming hybridized. So depending on what we want to achieve, we really have to continue with this hybridization and let's say this emerging new even practices, new emerging expertises. It's all together can be actually fitted into and of course tested as maybe some small scale cities. This is what we wanted to propose, but of course we didn't have time to develop this with Restored 2030, which would be an exemplar city where we could try to actually develop all these things. Of course, we have existing cities where already there is a lot of misfits between the parts, but nothing with what we cannot actually solve with let's say a proper technological approach to this. And when I see this, when I say this, I really think technology is media and technology is tools. So not only data without the proper vision of what to do with this data, what would be the consequences. And I hope I answered your question at least.
Okay, no, thank you very much. That was brilliant. And I think Carlo also made a quick comment. Are we able to put a regenerative integrative design approach into usual practice once and forever?
Well, this should be have to push, of course, by the how to say by the whole and very complex stakeholders of actually implementing it all comes back to the economy at the end. So there will be no we have to really, how to say, pay in a way for a better life, for better buildings. We cannot build and how to say, have the minimum efforts in many things, and also with the materials not to be transparent, and to then talk about some let's say
so we need to carry on pushing and pushing the agenda despite the difficulties, and the more work we put into it, the more results we can get and reach the ultimate target. All right, thank you very much, Jelena.
No approaches to I guess economic models of the cities.
All right, thank you very much for your time. That has been a pleasure.